Hi, welcome to For My Frenchie. This is me, 143. If you don't have a friend, you have one now. Hi. Sorry, I am, wow, 5 minutes late. I am 5 minutes late, and I had, you know what? This is probably the most stuff I've ever brought on a show today. So, pardon my tardiness. Rosie's up here. I had gotten so much. Yeah, I know, moderator. I know my moderator is getting on me for that. So I have a lot of stuff to bring on the show today because I was wanting to really prepare for this one. So yes, welcome everyone. So how is everybody today? The weather is breaking, and hi potato. The little potato is down here. Come here. You want to say hello? Come here. How is everybody today? Everybody doing well out there? And oh, here comes Coco. Chanel is moseying around. So then, no, okay. Now the potato is going to say hello. All right, and here comes. So this is where the chaos is going to start. So yeah, so I so here are the girls. The girl, hello. Hi. Everybody's excited. Everybody's excited. They are all excited. Everybody waits for Saturday. Saturday is a our fun day where we kind of have just kind of open topic. And yes, we had a very eventful day today. We our family obtained some new pets. Some of our family, yes. The moderator got some new pets, and my son got some new pets. Decided to add to the numerous ones that we already have in the family. So so we thought it would be a great day to do that. I don't even know. It's it's one of those things where you can't be bored enough on a Saturday, right? So why not just go and add some random pet to your house, right? Something that you like, not even, and it's not even like a pet that you would even think like, hey, I'm going to go out and adopt a dog, adopt a cat, right? This is something you wouldn't even think like, hey, I want to adopt today. So yeah, my son had Rosie, what? Fully violet, what? No. The I picked up my son today from a sleepover, and he got in the car with a empty aquarium, and and snails, frogs, yeah, right, yes, exactly. So he gets in the car with this empty aquarium, and I'm like, what are you going to do with this empty aquarium? Because we had just gotten him a betta fish. He wanted a betta fish. And anybody knows that when you have a preteen or a young child, when you get a fish of any kind, basically who's going to be taking care of that fish? Mom, right? Mom, dad, whatever. But the child is not going to be taking care of that fish. I will be. So, when it comes to any kind of animal, Coco Chanel, do not bite on that. When it comes to any animal that comes into my house, I do field them because I know that I'm probably going to be the one taking care of them. So, he started out with asking for, he asked for a hamster. I'm not into rodents. The moderator was very lucky to be able to get Herschel a few years back, which was a guinea pig. Which again, I'm not a rodent person. I knew that we had them growing up. We had gerbils and hamsters and stuff, and I think that was mainly because my sister, she was mostly into that. But I mean, I'm not really a hamster person. Nothing against him. I just I don't want to have to take care of him. But he's asked for those a couple times, and again, the you know what? It's funny, it's funny that you say that. The moderator Brittany was just talking about that today. She was showing me these big African snails. Yeah. So see, yeah, Brittany was just talking. She was showing me these pictures of these huge African snails, and she's like, "Oh, I want to get some of those." But yeah, so he came in and he goes, the friend that he was sleeping the night over at had, I guess, snails and these little water frogs and stuff, and so he asked me, he goes, hey, can we go there's a little pet store over by us. He goes, can we get some snails and stuff? And I said, yeah, whatever, because how hard is that, right? And so that's what we did. We went over to this little pet store over by us, and we obtained some of these. I guess they're I can't. What were they called? They were called some sort of snail. What was it? Mystical, magical, some. They're a snail basically, and they came in like ivory, golden, black, mystery. There you go, mystery snail. Which now that I'm thinking about, there's some sort of SpongeBob episode with mysteries. I think it was a seahorse. So now that I'm rambling on about that, but yes, they were from building a road or home because they're endangered. Wow, I'm gonna have to look that up because she was just talking about that today. She said these things are like huge, and she showed me pictures of it, and I made fun of her because I said, "Oh, that's AI," because they always make fun of me with AI stuff. But she said these things are like huge. But so we ended up obtaining 4 snails and 2 frogs, and we came home, and of course, the moderator standing in my kitchen, and she's like, "Oh, you got snails and frogs. Oh, I've always wanted snails and frogs." Never in my life has she ever mentioned wanting snails and frogs. So there we were, getting back in the car to go get her some snails and frogs that she's evidently wanted all of her life. So we got back in the car, and we went and got these snails and frogs for her. So she got two frogs and 2 frogs and I think 4 snails, 3 or 4 snails. And then of course then we had to get another snail and another algae. It was a mess. So a lot of fish and snails were obtained today in the process. And literally all I kind of wanted to do was have a kind of a quiet Saturday and get ready for today. Yeah, exactly. RFN. If anybody knows what that means, right? And then use the F word and then N for now. So that's kind of how our family rolls sometimes. When we want something, it's kind of like right now we kind of do things like that. So, but I must say, as soon as we got it, we went and we set up her little Coquille Chanel. She's biting her little stairs. Stop. We went and we set it up, and it doesn't look pretty in her apartment. So it did turn out very nice. Yes. Snail, you know what? Michelle, I was telling Brittany, because I live where there's like a bike trail, and it's got to be spring or I can't remember, like sometime during the year, but for some reason we get an awful lot of snails during a certain time of year, and they like to cross the bike trail, for some reason. And of course, there's bikes on the bike trail and everything. And I'm always like, people are going to run over these things. And so if I'm ever like walking the dogs or whatever, I'll grab them and move them to the other side so that people don't, crush them or whatever. But I like the little suckers. I think they're neat looking. And they don't, bother anything, that I'm aware of. They don't bother me. So I just usually pick them up and throw them on the other side. Not throw them, but I gently toss them down on the other side. But they're neat to watch. They're neat to watch. When we were buying them at the store, the people that were selling them to us, they kept going on about, that's what they were saying. That's what they were saying, Dave, that they said that they'll clean your aquarium and keep everything healthy, keep all the water balanced. And I'm like, well, right on, $3.99 a piece, throw them in there. So, no, that's why you got 4. No, you got 4 because you wanted every color that they had. So, and you wanted to keep your frogs happy. So then she was in the car pulling up names and all sorts of things for these frogs. So, yes, absolutely. Because they had black and gold and blue and ivory and so forth. So it was, it was quite an eventful Saturday for us. Just again, one of those fluke things where you really have nothing to do except go, buy some sort of animals that you really don't need in your life. But you're like, hey, I've got an aquarium, I might as well fill it, which is kind of, I always, I I've never really, you know what, I don't think, I don't think we, I don't even think that we took a picture of, well, I didn't take a picture. I'll have to show a picture next, or Tuesday, I'll show a picture. Tuesday's pet loss day. So if you, speaking of Tuesday's pet loss day at 7 p.m. But I will say, I always talk about my birds, and I will tell this quick story about my birds. So we, I started out with a parakeet because Dave and Patty actually have parakeets that that they train really well. They train, they fly all over the place, and they hold them and all this kind of neat thing, right? And I was jealous of the fact of their little training of the parakeets, and I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of neat. And it was during COVID. It was during the COVID time, and I'm like, that'd be kind of cool. I never had a parakeet that you could like. I was never really into birds, and I'm like, well, maybe we'll get a parakeet that we can train and be friends with us and hang out and be on our fingers, right? Um, at the time we didn't have the girls. We had the boxers and so forth, so we had to be very careful with the parakeets and so forth. And granted, we only got one. We only got one. And so I had gotten, again, it was during COVID, I gotten a cage for it. I got a blue one. I got in a cage for this bird, and I was sitting there watching TV, and my two boxers were sleeping on the couch. And all of a sudden I looked, and I'm like, that damn bird was on the floor. And I'm like, wow, I'm like looking, I'm like, did I leave the door open to this thing and to the cage? And I'm like, oh my God, and of course I've got two sleeping boxers that would have, probably eaten that thing for lunch. So I jump up and, I go and I grab hi, Koki. I go, yeah, you would have eaten the bird too. I jump up and I go and I grab, the bird and put it back in the cage. And I'm like, oh my God, right? And so I go and I'm sitting there again, and all of a sudden, like 10 more minutes later, that damn bird is back on the floor. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, so I'm looking all around the cage. I'm like, is there an opening? What is happening here? Right. And so I'm like, so I'm sitting there now. I put it back in the cage. There's no openings anywhere. And I'm looking and I'm watching this bird now. I'm like intently watching how this bird is getting out of this cage. And sure enough, he was like angling his body to get out of this cage. And he could fit through the bars. And now, granted, it was just like a regular, it wasn't like any kind of huge bar cage. I wasn't that dumb. But he would like angle his body to get through the cage of these bars. So I was like, oh my God. Because again, COVID time, it's not like you could just, do all sorts of things. So I was, I was looking all around. I'm like, where can I get another cage that has, smaller bars? And I'm calling all around. And the the only place that I think, well, I looked on Amazon, and Amazon, I believe it was going to take, like 4 or 5 days in order to get a smaller cage with smaller bars for parakeets. And so the closest pet store had a cage, but it was a pretty large cage, and it was, it was pretty decent. It was pretty large. And I'm like, okay, well, this is what I got to do in order to keep this bird in here and keep, my dogs from being able to eat it. Right. So I go and I get this cage, and as I'm buying it, I'm like, well, I can't put, like one bird in this cage, so I'm like, well, while I'm here, I might as well get another bird. So I got another bird, and I'm like, okay, so now I get home and I throw this 2 birds in this cage. And granted, this is a pretty big cage, and I'm sitting there looking and I'm looking and I'm like, man, that's a really big cage for just 2 birds, it had like 6 feeders, and I'm like, well, so now I've got this big cage with just 2 birds in it. What am I going to do? So I'm like, well, let me go back to the pet store and get, because I had like a blue one and a green one, and I'm like, well, let me get another another bird. So I got a third bird, and then I threw the third bird in there. I'm like, then I'm back at home and I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, there's 3 birds in there. It's kind of throwing it off. Maybe I just need a fourth. Anyway, I ended up with 4 birds in order to make the cage. I know it was the stupidest thing ever, but that's how I ended up with 4 birds. Thanks to Dave and Patty, who started out with training their birds and ended up getting with a bird. And so that's how I ended up with 4 birds in an extremely large cage yeah. So thanks to so we could just thank Dave and Patty for that one. So, but Patty says, love snails, but rescue of Florida. Oh, yeah. So, yes. So I took it. So I did take it. So Patty says, love rescuing snails, but Florida, when I rescued a huge turtle in the middle of the road in Florida, and when I took a trip to Florida. My sister lives out in Florida, and I was driving in Florida, and actually Patty was in the passenger seat with me, and there was this turtle that was crossing the road, and it was a rather large turtle. And I saw it, and it looked like it was going to get hit by a car. So I like literally pulled over and jumped out of my car and grabbed this turtle, and just opened the passenger door where Patty was sitting, Patty in the chat here, and I put this turtle on Patty's legs, and she looked petrified at the time, and she's like, what are we gonna? I'm like, just hang on, we'll take it over. There was like a pond over there, so so we it was a big turtle too, and it looked like it had a cracked shell, so it looked like somebody had probably hit it before, but we got over it, and there was a bunch of kids on the side of the road too that thanked me for saving the turtle. So but I couldn't see getting a turtle hit by a car. I did that over, there was a huge snapping turtle over down the street from me too, and God love I had a neighbor that lived around the corner from me. God love him. He passed away a few years ago from cancer, but there was a huge snapping turtle that was crossing the street, and I called him up, and I'm like, hey Mike, I'm like, there's a turtle in the middle of the road. I'm like, he's a snapping turtle, and he goes, come pick me up. And I drove by. He had a bucket. He helped me get this big old snake. I mean, that was a mean guy too, but we got him out of the road and over to the side, and so I was, I just, I mean, these creatures, they don't know, when they enter roads, things like that. But, I just can't stand to think of these things are going to get hit. And I like turtles and stuff like that. And, again, I just can't stand to see things like that. It's just horrible. But anyway, so, it's always doing the Lord's work. Right. And then, I get involved in all this stuff, and, I'm like, I thought she was going to throw up just now. I'm like, oh, and then Coco's going to throw up on camera. No, she didn't. She didn't. I know she's all right. I thought she was just going to throw up right now. I'm like, well, that's good. That's okay. But anyway, so I started pulling out stuff today because I was at an event yesterday, and it was interesting because as you get older in life, right? A lot of the people at this event were they had their kids there, and they had their kids there, and we were some of the younger, we were some of the not old people, but older people, where my kids are 26 and going to be 13, in a couple months. And so we're out of that stage where, our kids aren't, in diapers anymore, running around. And so, it was actually kind of nice to be able to sit back and, and not go through that, you know, screaming and but it also was weird too, having that what's wrong? It was also kind of weird, being on that other spectrum, right? Being, one of, the elders in the room, so to speak. So it kind of got me, jogged back to memory lane with regards to growing up in the 70s 80s and all that stuff. And I'm like, what kind of a I'm thinking something fun for the topic today of like just like growing up in different eras and how and I was thinking like how different it is when we grew up, everybody growing up. And put in the chat when you grew up, what era did you grow up? What was the era that you grew up in? I was, I born in the 70s, but, grew up in the 80s, 80s, 90s, and how, moderator early 2000s, things were just so different, than they are now. And, and it's so vastly different, vastly different. Yeah. 99 baby. Yeah. I mean, just, and, the way too, like how people treat each other, fashion, yeah, 70s, 80s. Dave and Patty, what were you? What was your era? But I mean, I'm like, and great, and it's one of the things we were talking about yesterday too, because we did a lot of the, just playing outside. Oh, never mind. We didn't know, but still, we did a lot of same things. We did a lot of like playing outside. There wasn't all this, kids are so into, video games and being stuck on computers. And I mean, we're the same way, right? We're on phones and we get lost on so many things. And it was funny because I was I was saying in the car yesterday, I said that's kind of outside until the street lights came on, right? Yeah, Gen X. That's the generation I'm in as well, Michelle. And that's but I was saying, like I said, that's the one thing I do enjoy about like my son, and my daughter was as well when she was younger. My son right now, he's in this age where of course they have all the modern technology, which we didn't have at all, right? But he has this. I made the comment. I said my son is. I said my son is feral, and I said because he loves being outside, and we have like woods and bike trails and so forth like that, and I said he's always like no matter what, he's always running outside, and so Dave said 50s, 60s. Right. Okay. So, you have the same thing. You had memorizing phone numbers, waiting days for when we had to drop off photos to get developed, we had all that there was all the trends, right? Bell bottoms and hippies and all sorts of things when life was simple. Right. But I always say too, I'm like, so, I like the fact that even in my son's generation, he can still enjoy a lot of the stuff that, I did when I was a kid. And again, I made the comment, I'm like, he's feral. Yeah. Smoking in cars, right? We had smoking in cars. We didn't there was no seat belts. There wasn't any of that. And, you went here. I pulled some pictures too, because I thought I'm like, just like some of like the simple. You went to the mall, right? You went to the mall and you went into like the photo booths, right? You went with your friends. You went into smoking on airplanes, in hospitals, restaurants. You had the smoke. Do they? I don't even know. I don't even think they have smoking sections in restaurants anymore. Do they? I don't even think so. I know they don't have them in bars anymore. I don't think they do. I mean, I know here in Ohio, you have to be, um, I think you can get in trouble if you smoke in a bar here. I don't know about other states, though. I don't know. But, like, you went to the mall. I mean, that was big. What did you do? You went and you hung out at the mall, and then you got, you got in those photo booths, right? Which, some places still have those. Now, granted, they're all, mostly in color now, but you went and you got into the photo booths and you got with your friends or your boyfriends. And this is me and the co-producer back in, I think this has got to be probably 2000. This has got to be what, 90, it's got to be 93, 90, 92, 93. And yeah, so I mean, you did, these were like, classic pictures, right? And yeah. So that's me way back when, right? And I mean, but yeah, you took pictures, and that, like I said, that was, gosh, over long time ago. It's when I was very, very young. And and it's big hair, huge hair. That was huge. Big hair. I mean, just staples, right? Staples. Rise of MTV music videos. That was huge. Concerts. We had some. To me, it's like we had some of the best. Yeah, that Dave said. Yes, so was her daughter. Absolutely. Yeah, we did. We had some of the greatest music in, like, the 80s and 90s and so forth. But and yeah, again, big hair, huge hair. I mean, I'm the one with I'm this one right here with the huge hair. Aquanet was my friend. I lived on that stuff. Just huge hair. I'll tell you what, though, I was sad when hair went away, when big hair went away. We Care Bears, Saturday morning cartoons. Love Saturday morning cartoons. Care Bears. You got Strawberry Shortcake. I pulled this one out. Lowly Worm from Richard Scarry books. That was my favorite as a kid. Pound Puppies. Pound Puppies. Loved Pound Puppies. That's probably why I love dogs so much. One of my absolute favorites, Monchi Cheese. Monchi Cheese was one. They sell these every time I go to Florida. Epcot Center has. Well, you know what? I take that back. They used to. Anytime I went to Epcot Center, they had a store in Epcot in China. If you went to China in Epcot Center, they had a whole section full of Monchi cheese. And I used to love watching Monchi cheese when I was a kid. And so anytime I went to Epcot Center, I would always go and get something Monchi cheese. And this past time, I went, I went last April. And I went to there, and they didn't have hardly anything. I am not going to sing the Monchi cheese song. I refuse to sing the Monchi cheese song. But you can Google it. That's why somebody, I don't know, I don't even know who made Google, but you can Google the Monchi cheese song. I refuse to sing on the YouTube live. But there are stores in our mall that do have Monchi cheese stuff. So, but I still do like the Monchi cheese stuff. And you always have some of the classic TV shows, Golden Girls, which I always used to watch with my grandmother as well, which was always very, very great shows. We had great shows, 80s and 90s. A-Team, Golden Girls. We had wrestling, professional wrestling, which I believe was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe a professional wrestling match was Dave and Patty's first date. I think, was that your first date? Was a professional wrestling show? Coco? Coco's getting in trouble. The dungeon master might have to come down. I'm gonna take down my set. Coco. Was it? Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, it was. So Dave and Patty. Nope. Oh, sorry. Get off of there. Oh, all right. Sorry. Coco got hung up in my lights. Yeah. So Dave and Patty's their first date was at a professional wrestling match. Wrestling was huge in the 80s. We grew up on it. I spent a little part of my life early on in my life in the end of Coco Chanel, I swear. Yeah. Coco Chanel, now that she is feeling better, you are getting in so much trouble today. She's getting in a lot of trouble today. But yes, I spent the early part of my young adult life involved in independent wrestling. Which here's a picture of the moderator and I when she was a little girl at a wrestling event, but that was a long one. It's really hard to see. Aw, you had to walk there because you were too young. Aw, that's sweet. As I say, I thought that was one of your first dates at a wrestling event. And then, and of course, then you had the silver trees. I always share this picture. You had the silver trees. 19. Well, that has to be. Yeah, that's true. The the moderator spent a lot of time around the wrestling area because we did a lot with independent wrestling. And then after that, I got involved in roller derby. So that's the moderator and I when I was in roller derby. So there we are there. So that's when she was just little. Now she's all grown up and does her own thing and buys her own fish and or not fish. Coco Chanel. Good Lord, girl. But yeah, that's the moderator when she was this little. Now she's all grown up and does her own thing. So, yep. So yeah. And then there were always records. Records were huge. One of my favorites. I got this at an auction place, but Strawberry Shortcake Roast. Oh my gosh, I used to love these records growing up. Love these records. Record players and the my daughter, my moderator, has her whole apartment is vintage. She has everything that is like vintage, 70s, 80s vintage. Everything is vintage. It looks her apartment looks amazing. You go in there, it's like a time capsule. Crazy. But absolutely just and then of course you have Care Bears. Care Bears. Yeah, well, I don't know what else you can fit in there. There was always Now this is the newer Care Bear. These aren't the originals, but these are the newer Care Bears. So then you had all the newer Care Bears and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, just great stuff. So here's another question. So do you think life was better before the smartphone? There's a question for you. Do you think life was better before the smartphone? I don't know. So I guess I think it's debatable, right? Because I enjoy the smartphone, right? I mean, it's debatable. To me, it's absolutely debatable. Because, well, I think yes and no, because it's nice. It's convenient. You can look you can look, well, no, because, well, think about it this way. When you need it, it's good for when you need it, right? It's good for when you need it. And I mean, I don't know. I think that we're to the point where we're so reliant on it. Um, I think that's when it gets to be a problem, right? And but when we go places, um, right? That's Michelle. That's how I feel too. I think that there's two sides to it, and but like when we're forced, like when we went on a cruise a couple years ago. We're forced to basically get rid of our phones because you really can't have it out there on the water. And I'll tell you what, when you're forced to not have your smartphone, that is like the best, like, however long you're gone, that is like the best 5 days of peace and quiet, right? It is. It is like the best, like, disconnect. And even, my son went on a retreat this couple weeks ago, and they told the kids, like, you are not allowed to bring your phones. And he said the same thing. He's like, that was like the best, like, 4 days. And you know again, I think it's a catch-22 because they're good for a certain reason. I do enjoy the fact of, um, it's we have this like 360 app on there, so I can always track my son. I can always see. Uh, that was great. I'll tell you what, that you were 100% right. That was great. But there's an app on there. It's a 360 app where you can, I can always track my son. I can always see where he's at. Now, granted, they can always track where I am, which I don't particularly always care for. But because even when I can tend to be a workaholic, and if I'm still sitting at my desk past, a certain time, they will all start calling me or texting me saying, why are you still sitting at your desk? And you should be home. And, but, so to me, it's kind of that catch-22. But then, you get spam call. It's almost like you can never put it away. You can't put it away. Or if you do put it away, you miss a call. But I don't know. And then just to be able to have information at your fingertips, there's that aspect. But like my son will never know, uh, he'll never know how we had to, if he has to write a paper for school, he'll never know that the joys of going to the library and having to look up the information for his paper. He can go to Google and Google it. He can go to Chat GPT and pull up all the information, right? So he'll never have to, pull his hair out with go into card catalogs and doing things like that. Now, flip side of that, do I wish I had that back then? 100%. Am I glad that I sat, and had to go through card catalogs and encyclopedias and stuff? Right? Michelle, I love Chat GPT. I'm with you on that. 100. I love Chat GPT, and it's funny because my boss sitting next to me, she goes, I think Chat GPT is making me dumb. I said, I don't think that at all. I said, I think it just gives us suggestions. But I love it. I love it because it gives you suggestions. It gives you things that you would never think about. So, but I don't know. I wish that I had some of the stuff like when I was in school. I wish I had some of those resources where it was just like at your fingertips. I mean, think about like uh, when we did, what do you call it? Science projects. I mean, look at all the research and stuff that we had to do when we had science fair, science projects. We had to go places and we had to, you know, we had to go and pick up brochures from companies and stuff. Now you could just go Google stuff and print off things. Um, I mean, now it's so easy. But before you actually had to do legwork in order to produce a good science project. You had to actually, if you were doing a project on smoking, you had to actually smoke the cigarettes at the table with your with your child. Um, but but um, but I mean, now it's just a different world now. I mean, and it's funny because when I was just at I went to that funeral a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about that. I mean, think about that too. Growing up, you could go and speaking of smoking, you could go and you could buy cigarettes for an adult. They'd give you a note, and you could buy cigarettes for them. They'd give you money, and they'd hand you cigarettes. They had cigarette machines. You could go put money in a cigarette machine and get cigarettes. And I mean, that's just the way it was. Um, yeah. Yeah, I know it's my therapist. Yeah. You know what? You're 100% right. Now, the only thing I don't like about the internet, Cokie Chanel, I swear she's getting in it. Come here. The only thing I wish that they would get rid of off of the internet is WebMD. WebMD can be scary as hell. Again, you either have the common cold or you are just dying of cancer. One of the two. It has no happy medium, in my opinion. Because sometimes, some information is good, but too much information is bad. And so just, I don't know. Sometimes there's just no happy medium on that one, right? But you can't get a good but I don't yeah. They're just, you just can't. Bored. These dogs today, I love them to death, but sometimes they could just get into some crazy thing. Oh, there's a good one. The phone on the wall. Who has a home phone anymore? That's me, by the way. But who has a home phone anymore? And I mean, God love my parents. I mean, I don't know how long that phone cord was, and then how long that phone cord was when we had to, like when we pulled it out, laying on the floor, laying on the kitchen floor, talking to people, trying to get away from our parents, so that they wouldn't hear who we were talking to, or God forbid, landlines, right? Yeah, landline operator, right? I mean, but and God forbid, a boy or something called for you, or a girl called for you, or whatever, and your parents, got them, or if your dad gave them the, third degree before they got to you, you just, but yeah, landlines. I mean, can you still remember your home phone number, your original home phone number? I know I can. I can remember my home phone number when I was growing up. Now, can I remember people's cell phone numbers? No. I can barely remember the co-producer's, phone number half the time. So that's the ironic thing. I can remember a phone number from, when I was growing up, but I can't remember half cell phone numbers, right? Right. Lots of jobs have, right. And you know what, Michelle, jobs are going to change even more. With technology, jobs are going to change even more. With the way that automation is happening, they're going to continue to change. And I think that that's what people are getting scared of. The way that machines come in and they do the picking now, especially like Amazon and all that. Those people, I think it's going to eliminate the jobs. The only thing that's going to be left is going to be drivers, right? But other than that, I mean, everything, phone stuff. I mean, hell, you go to the drive-through now. I mean, I don't know how it is in New Zealand, but like you go to the drive-through now, everything is AI. I went to Wendy's the other day, and it was an AI person it wasn't even the real person on the drive-through. So, oh yeah, the self-driving cars, which scares the hell out of me. I don't know anybody that has taken those, and I don't think I would. I'm not there yet in life. But yeah, I don't know if I would take that. Would you guys take a self-driving car? I'm not sure I would. I'm not sure I would. I have trust issues. I don't think I would. Cannot call a business without getting AI to pick up before human. Any kind of any kind of any kind of phone system that picks up drives me crazy. Especially when it takes you forever to get an actual human being. Drives me nuts. You're sitting there, help, help, agent, agent, 00. Well, tell me why. I mean, even to get a prescription, I don't think they work. The self-driving cars? You don't think they work too well? I don't know. I mean, I've seen people in them, or I've seen people take them, but you wouldn't. I don't know. I don't know. It took me forever to get used to Uber and Lyft. I don't know. Yeah, I know, painful to pick up, and you know why? You know why it's painful for people to pick up the phone and call anymore? Because they're so used to texting now. It's they're so people now don't know how to communicate on the phone. People even where I work, I think it's and I hate this. I'm going to sound old. I think it's like the current generation. They're so used to texting and not physically talking to people that it's challenging for them to pick up the phone. So it's easier for them to text. It's easier for them to email. That's the best communication they know. And it seems like from a lot of the times when you do get a human, if they tend to be younger in their 20s, their customer service skills are not that stellar. And it's sad. It's, you know, but I think that comes from a lot of, when you have your nose in a screen all the time and you don't get a lot of, human interaction. I mean, hell, even go to the store. You're going to, and Dave and Patty, you're going to get mad at me, but I do go to a lot of self checkouts. But I mean, a lot of self checkouts now, you don't get a lot of human interaction anymore. They want you to interact with a computer. Now, I go to self checkouts because I like to get it through quicker. Dave and Patty go through the people, and they get mad at me when I do self checkouts. But you don't get a lot of human interaction anymore with people. So I think that that's another part of the thing. People just a lot of people don't know how to interact anymore. And then when they do interact with people, it seems like their only interaction is what they see on TikTok, what they see on social media. And I'm not gonna lie, half the people, especially on TikTok, they're mean as hell. And or they're very judgmental. And so I think people are afraid to say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing. And the vet used to email to tell me her owner didn't make it recently. Wait, oh, her dog did. Oh, wait, vet used to email to tell. Oh my God. What? The vet emailed to tell the owner her dog didn't make it. Oh my God. See, that's ridiculous. Yeah, well, you want to hear one worse than that. I'll up one on you, and I don't up people, but this one like appalled me, and I wouldn't even normally say that, but you brought up a vet, and this was a vet tech. They were doing like reasons why people got fired from like shooting videos of TikTok, and so the Frenchie had a seizure. Oh, it had this whole montage was people who lost their jobs from filming videos at TikTok, and this vet tech filmed herself doing a TikTok where, after people, after you euthanize your dogs or cats or whatever, and sometimes they have to wait till the next day for the animals to get picked up by the crematories. They have to sometimes go in the freezer or whatever. Well, this vet tech filmed herself with one of the animals that were in one of the bags. And she walked up to the freezer and slammed this whatever animal was in the bag into the freezer and then slammed the freezer shut. She filmed this on TikTok and then wondered why she lost her job. And then she was on there saying, I don't know who turned me in. I guess I can guess who showed my TikTok to my boss, but and then she had some choice words for that person. And all I could think was, are you joking me right now? Like, first of all, why would you? I can't imagine what would go through somebody's head to think that they would do something like that. Um, but and then to film it, like I can't imagine. I don't know. The lady, first of all, she looked like a monster to me, anyways. And sometimes you could just see people and you could just sense evil in them. She looked like one of those people to me. She just looked like an evil person she just looked horrible. And I hate to be judgy like that, but some people you could just see that they're either unhappy or just awful people in life. And I don't know. She needs Jesus or something because she looked awful. But in order to do something like that, and then not even, and then to film it and then put it on TikTok, like why would you do that? But kind of getting getting back to my point, where yeah, you're right. You're right, Dave. TikTok has created some idiots, and they do it for attention, and they do it to make money. Someone I was booking travel made a comment that um, this traffic makes me want to kick puppies. Yeah, who says that? Right? Who says that? I don't know. I don't know. But like I said, I think again, people are so. I think they also get desensitized to everything that they encounter. I think I'll be honest, I don't think that they encounter a lot of people or a lot of like communities that are good, or I don't think that they surround themselves with good people. And, um, or again, or they'll get online and they're surrounded by trolls and, they get afraid to talk or speak up and it's just sad. And, so it's, I don't know. It's right. You're right. A moral compass. 100%. 100%. It's like read the room. Read the room. But again, that's I don't know. I don't. People always say, or not people. I shouldn't just. I hate general comments like that. People always do this. No, but I mean, it seems like there's a general consensus of, oh, the world's going this way, the world's going that way. And I don't like to think that way. I always generally believe that there's more good people in the world than bad. And, you know, everybody has a, everybody has a, everybody has a job to, just do their best. And, if we all do something good every day, then, it's a good place. And they the bad ones always make the news. The bad ones always outshine the good ones. And, so that's what you're going to see. Right. But still, the way I look at it is, I don't know a lot of the bad ones. The majority of the people I know are good. So that's why I say it. I surround myself with good, decent people. And you don't really surround yourself with bad people. And, if you do, then, or, if you do run into them, you just kind of, edge them out, edge them out. Right. But, or, you hope that maybe they take something good from you and learn from it. But, yeah, it's like I said, it's a whole kind of, everything has shifted, and I think a lot of it is due to, just social media and we're disconnected. We're disconnected from human interaction, and we're disconnected from, I mean, there's people now that, they live in these other worlds. They get online. I worked with somebody that, she was obsessed with running home from work to log in online, and I don't even know what, I don't even know. It wasn't like a mine. It was like, like, what Minecraft is, but something similar to that. But it was like with people, and you could, you know, meet people and all this stuff. But it was more like all these different worlds and stuff. And, she's like, yeah, you can be whoever you want to be and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but what about like actually like going out in the world and meeting people and she's like, yeah, but that's too hard. And and I'm like, well, yeah, but so I don't know. It's just it. She also didn't ever go anywhere either, and I'm like, why don't you go out and kind of live life a little bit, and so it just kind of was interesting, but it's just. Oh well, you know what? Actually, here's one for here's a question here's a question, well, for the group, but also for Dave. Do you prefer riding in cars with a GPS now or using a map? Because when I grew up, I was always told to always have a map in the car. But now that we have GPSs on our phone, now granted, I think that we should still always have a map, because what if you don't have signal on your phone? But what about what about what about do you prefer using a map or a GPS, or riding in cars with no GPS? What about that? Yeah, exactly. If you like, that's what. Yeah. Yeah, real men don't need either. Right. Always have a map. That's what I was always taught. Always have a map. Right. Michelle says she always has two GPSs in case one breaks, and I have my phone. Right. Yeah. It was always have a map. Always have a map. Always have a compass. Always have something. But you know what though? I'll tell you what. A lot of people can't read maps. That's one thing I learned. I learned how to read a damn map. And so I mean, there's a lot of great things about growing up in the age that we did. You knew how to read a map. We know how to read cursive. I still can't believe that people can't read cursive. I write in cursive all the time at work. And, the majority of the people at work cannot read cursive, which just blows my mind a little bit. And I remember, I wrote a letter to one of my nephews, and he could not read it because it was in cursive. And I'm like, I couldn't believe that they didn't teach cursive anymore. That was kind of mind blowing to me a little bit. But yeah, that was very, 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 very interesting. But anyway, so oh yeah. Do we like the old outfits, like the outfits of our time, or today's styles? What are we thinking? Do we like today's styles or the outfits from back in the day? I don't know. I think that if I'm going back to, I'm not gonna lie. So if I looked at this picture, this was like my new Kids on the Block posters. This was in my friend Mary Beth's room. But I had those were my favorite freaking pairs of jeans, and they were rolled up at the bottom because that's what you're supposed to do. But those are my favorite pair of jeans, right? Those are my Z Cavaricci jeans, and that sweatshirt. I'm not gonna lie, I think that was that. I don't know if that was my brother's sweatshirt or my sister's sweatshirt, somebody's sweatshirt. But yeah, I do too. Yeah, but the rolled up pig jeans, and yeah, I love those jeans. Those Z Cavaricci jeans, and I can't remember what that was, some sort of name brand sweatshirt. But Yeah, I liked it. I liked the styles back then. I really did. And I remember, I can't remember. I wore one of my brother's sweatshirts somewhere, and it was his one of his ex girlfriends gave it to him, and he was he was he it was a pretty expensive sweatshirt as well, and I was at where's it at? I was at her house. Oops, oops. I was at her house, and we we were screwing around, and she had a big Rottweiler, and her Rottweiler, and Coco, she can't hear me. But she can't hear me. But anyway, so we were screwing around, and her Rottweiler jumped up and bit me in the back and ripped that sweatshirt, ripped that whole sweatshirt back down in the back. I thought I was gonna die because I thought my brother was gonna kill me because his girlfriend got him that sweatshirt. But anyway, so yeah, So that was a walk down memory lane for all that, and then of course you had the fun dance dresses, which God love the 80s or night. Yeah, this was probably early 90s. Yeah, early 90s. Yeah, big hair, just a mess. Oh, but anyway, so well, I am sorry that I was late. Everybody, but I appreciate everybody being here. We will be back on Tuesday for Pet Loss. I do want to shout out a couple things today. I want to shout out the moderator for being here tonight because she got a lot. God love her. She got invited to a dinner today, and she told them that she could not do it because she was helping out her mother on her YouTube channel, and they gave her a hard time about it. But she said that no, she had to help her mother. So shout out to the moderator for caring about her mother and her goofy YouTube channel. So very, 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 very appreciative to my family who supports me and everything that I do. But especially when peer pressure comes comes at calling, because they really wanted her to go and they really pressured her into yeah, I know. And they, they're, really tried to push her into, well, do you really have to do it? And so, but anyways, I do appreciate it, and I appreciate her. So and then Coco is getting into stuff. I'm sorry, Coco. Oh, and she just knocked over my light. Yeah, well, that means the show's over. Anyways, I don't know. They got something. So anyways, as you can see, my light has gone over because Coco's knocked it over. So anyways, and Rosie's got something in her mouth. So we've got to beat her too. Anyways, until Tuesday. Tuesday is Pet Loss Support Night, and at 7 p.m. If you don't have a friend, you have one now. Thank you for stopping by. Hit the like, comment, subscribe button. Lots of love to everyone. And again, I've got to beat the dogs now because they knocked over my stuff. So thank you. Have a wonderful night. Take care. See you later. Bye-bye.